Hi everyone, this is Dayu from Ecomm Ops. Today I'm going to talk about a better alternative to ePacket that we use that is still very affordable. It has faster shipping, more consistency. It's going to make your customers more satisfied and it's going to make you more profits as well. If you like what you see here, please like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications so you see more in the future, and please join our Facebook group as well so you join our community of like-minded folks to talk about operations and logistics in e-commerce. So let's start with a quick history of ePacket and what it is. So it all started in 1874 with the Universal Postal Union, which is a treaty between multiple countries that sets standard rates for international postage. And eventually it was adopted by more than 190 nations. And it really enabled much cheaper cross-border mail delivery, especially from countries like China. And that eventually led to ePacket as we know today. And at first, and today even, in some ways, it's pretty awesome. It has 9 to 15 day shipping most of the time. So I say most of the time, and I'll talk about what that means a little bit later. And it was even cheaper most of the time to ship from China to the US than from within the US. Many times for a small package, you can actually ship from Shenzhen to New York for less than it would take to ship from LA into New York. And it was soon adopted by 35 countries, and it has decent tracking, kind of, and I'll talk about that later as well. So ePacket usually starts as China Post, coming from China, and then it turns into either USPS or in other countries where whatever the local postal system might be. And really enable drop shipping as we know it today. The combination of AliExpress, Shopify, ads, and ePacket, it made a lot of entrepreneurs a lot of money. So I'm not going to diss on ePacket. I think that it's done a lot for the industry, but again, there's quite a few downsides, and these days there's something that is much better. So let's talk about the problems with ePacket. But not only that, I'll tell you a little bit about the fundamental reasons why ePacket actually has these issues. So first off, ePacket was never really designed for reliable e-commerce shipping. It was made for cross-border mail. And obviously dropshippers started using it and it gave birth to this huge industry today. Now, there's a couple of problems. So first, it really depends very heavily on passenger flights. And this has a major issue because passenger flights aren't going to flex their capacity to send out more ePacket packages, right? Which means that during Q4, during this coronavirus situation, during any other kind of supply chain shocks, sometimes very unpredictable, you're going to have a lot of issues with ePacket packages getting onto flights and they'll be stuck in a warehouse somewhere waiting for it to move. Second, ePacket has very little direct control over the process. It starts as China Post, and then something happens. I mean, obviously something happens, but there's very little control and visibility in the process. And at some point, it turns into USPS or the local country post, and then eventually it starts moving correctly. Have some quotes here from a couple forums. We have this guy here saying that sad record from ePacket of shipping from China to Europe, 71 days delivery. That might actually be one of the longest I've seen, other than it getting completely lost. And this other guy on the right, feeling horrible because the coronavirus delayed a ton of packages. Customers are very unhappy, and he feels bad because he actually really wants to run a legitimate store, and a lot of this is actually outside his control. Another problem is that I'm sure if you use ePacket before you know this, there's a lot of Chinese everywhere. In the tracking on the left, you have half English, or in this case it's Spanish actually, and half Chinese. They have to do this because there is dual tracking, right? There's China Post and there's a local post, that this has to be the case. So it's always going to be half Chinese. And on the right, this is a very standard ePacket package and shipping label. It looks, kind of okay, but there's Chinese everywhere. Now look, I'm Chinese. I'm proud to be Chinese, but objectively speaking, I also know that your customers, when they're trying to buy from a Western branded store, they're going to be surprised to see a Chinese label. They're going to be surprised to see Chinese in the tracking number, and they're not going to understand a lot of it as well. So obviously, it's not a great experience for your customers. Another very big fundamental issue with ePacket is that every package is sent directly to the customer, to the country, with separate customs clearance. Now, this is a very big deal, okay, for a couple reasons. One, the value has to be declared directly on the shipping label. Obviously your seller is trying to help you out by declaring a low value so that your customers don't have to pay customs. But this means that they're going to declare something like $2 or $5, and your customer is going to be like, what's up? I paid $20, $50 for this, but this thing says it's much less than what I paid for. Obviously, you can explain it away, but again, not a great experience for your customers. And then second, they have a very inefficient customs clearance. They go directly to the country that it's supposed to go to. Now, this might sound great in theory, but I'll tell you later why there's a better option. But I'll use Sweden as an example because I know a lot of sellers have a lot of problems with Sweden. Sweden has some of the toughest customs processes in the entire world, actually. Sweden and probably Brazil. And so if your package gets sent to Germany, everything is usually fine, right? And then it gets sent to Sweden, nope. 20-30% of your packages get stuck for whatever reason. So all of this added together just creates a lot of issues when you use ePacket for your customers, and more so as more people use it. Your shipping times are very unreliable. During good periods, they're okay, but then unexpectedly, you're going to get week-long or even month-long delays, and just the entire process for it to be sent and received by your customer and the label and the tracking is just not a great customer experience. It might be okay to test products, to start building out your store, but if you really want to build a long-lasting brand and make a lot more money in this business, you really want to consider something else. All right, so drum roll please. What is the alternative? This is a method that we almost exclusively use for our own fulfillment service because it's affordable, it's consistent, reliable, and it solves for a lot of the issues that we just talked about with ePacket. And that service is Yunexpress. Now, Yunexpress was a service that was started just for cross-border e-commerce. It was not made for mail. Yunexpress was actually started by a couple of entrepreneurs who were actually in the e-commerce business years ago, and they were sick and tired of the traditional shipping methods that they had at the time. So they started this business really optimized for e-commerce in general and really optimized for entrepreneurs like you and suppliers like us. So the benefits at Yunexpress are it's fast, consistent, and reliable. Everything is in English. It has optimized routing and customs. And again, it's made for e-commerce and not for mail. So let's go and talk about some details about Yunexpress. So first, check out these shipping speeds. Okay, now these are not cherry-picked at all. Now, granted, these are doing a relatively slow period in terms of e-commerce business, so these are going to be on the faster end, but I'll show you some in Q4 later, right? So look at this. There's 5 days, 5 days, 5 days, 9 days. There's a 3-day to the United States. This is the regular service, by the way. This is not even the express service, and there's a 10-day in there as well. So generally speaking, the estimated shipping days, or at least what we tell our clients, is that the express line, which reaches the US, UK, Spain, Italy, France, and Germany, you're going to be looking at 4 to 8 days or so. The US might be 5 to 8 days, the UK might be 3 to 6 days, and the other EU countries are kind of in between. There's also a more affordable regular line as well, which experiences 7 to 12-day shipping to most of the 30 countries, but actually some of the countries, particularly in the Western EU, in the UK, you might be looking at 5 to 10-day shipping. And some smaller countries, you're going to see 8 to 15-day shipping. But these countries, if you're shipping with ePacket, you're going to be seeing 15, 20 or more days anyway. So generally speaking, it's really not bad. Now, the other thing that's really great about Yunexpress is not just the speed, but it's also the consistency. During Q4, it might get slightly delayed, but you're talking about days and not weeks. And the way that I always like to think about fulfillment, logistics in general, is that you can't just plan your business around the best times. You always have to plan your business around the worst case scenarios. And this is where Yunexpress really shines. Generally speaking, on average, it's faster than ePacket, but during the times when ePacket really struggles, Yunexpress is maybe a couple days delayed at most, and it's still going to give you a very high level of consistency and reliability. And if you want to see a full link of all the countries that Yunexpress serves, I have a link below. Check it out. It's part of my group as well, so please join the group and join in the community too. All right, so I'm sure you probably asked, well, what does it look like in Q4? So this is, again, not a cherry-picked batch of Yunexpress Express line tracking numbers in Q4. So these were sent out on December 14th. And look at this, right? 5 days, 6 days, 5 days, 8 days, 7, 4, 4, 6. And look at when they arrived. December 19th, 20th, 19th, 23rd, 18th, 20th. 98% of our express line deliveries sent on the 13th and the 14th arrived in time for Christmas. And actually, that meant arrived in time for Christmas Eve, because Christmas, USPS doesn't even deliver. Now, I ask you, can you even imagine using ePacket honestly anytime in December and being comfortable that it's going to arrive in time by Christmas? Some of it will, most of it probably will not. And the ability to be able to push your shipping date by weeks into December so that you can still get your products out to your customers in time for Christmas during the busiest shopping season of the year, trust me, you're going to make a lot more money in Q4 because of it. And you're going to have a lot less headaches from customers complaining about delays or not receiving the product in time for Christmas. Now, how does Yunexpress do this? So let's talk about the fundamental reasons why they're set up better than ePacket. So one, they only use freight lines. They don't depend on passenger traffic. And using a freight line is a very different animal than using passenger planes, because freight lines, they tend to increase their capacity during busier seasons. And actually, one thing that Yunexpress does is that they actually do increase prices by a little bit during this period so that they can outbid other competitors competing for the same capacity on a cargo plane. Now, obviously, this does mean that there's going to be some slight variations in the price overall through the year, but it's what you have to do. When you're running a business, when you're running an e-commerce business, you want your logistics to be smooth, and you should be willing to spend a little bit more during Q4 to make sure that you're still getting roughly the same expected delivery date for your customers so that they get it in time, and then you can again make more money in Q4 by selling closer and closer to Christmas. And the other thing that we really like about Yunexpress is that they always improve and they always add capacity depending on the demand. Last year during Q4, they increased their warehouse capacity by 6x just to meet the Q4 rush. And this part is very important as well. They control and they optimize the routing and customs clearances. So again, we're going to use Sweden and the EU as an example. So what ePacket does is that they send their packages directly to each country. And each package then has to go through an individual customs clearing process. And we already talked about the issues with that. So they send it directly to Sweden, and Sweden rejects a bunch of them because, again, Sweden has some of the toughest customs in the world. Yunexpress is smarter than that. They ship in bulk directly to their warehouse in the Netherlands. Okay? And because they're shipping in bulk, they actually have some control and some influence into the customs process as well, which means that they help with the customs process to make sure it goes through smoothly. So there's a higher chance of it going through customs generally. And also, if there is an issue, we're able to call up Yunexpress and ask, like, actually, what's up? And they would actually know about it, as opposed to, I'm sure if you try to ask ePacket or China Post, they're going to say, well, we have no idea. It left our hands, so it must be stuck somewhere. And the other thing about the Netherlands that makes it very special is that it has some of the easiest and fastest customs clearances in the world. So it might seem a little bit roundabout to go through the Netherlands first and then go to the other countries in the EU, but they do this is because they're optimizing for the speed of delivery. Okay, not for distance, not for how many planes or how many routes it needs to take. They're optimized for speed of delivery. From the Netherlands, routing that package to Sweden or to any other country, it doesn't have to go through the customs process ever again. So what does that lead to? Okay, so because Yunexpress, they control the entire process from sending out from China, routing it to their warehouse, the customs process, and then to wherever it needs to go, you get very clear step-by-step tracking, all in English. Look at the left here. Okay, so it starts in Shenzhen, a couple days later, Hong Kong, then LA, San Jose, and it arrives. So this one arrived in 4 days. And the other great thing about it is that when you don't have to worry about custom clearances, they can have labels all in English. They don't have to declare value on the package itself because they do it in bulk. There's no Chinese on it. It says Yunexpress, but most people don't even know what that is. And also, as you see, the return address is also within the country itself. It's not somewhere in China. So in the US, it usually comes through LA or New York, and in the EU, a lot of it goes through the Netherlands. And all of this, of course, results in more satisfied customers and therefore more profits for you. Those of you who've been running a store for a while, you understand this. If you have slow shipping, inconsistent shipping, weird tracking number stuff in Chinese, you're going to have a lot of customer complaints. You're going to have customer refunds. They're not going to purchase from your store again. They're not going to tell others about it. They're going to give you a low Facebook feedback score and really hinder your store's growth. And that's exactly why we almost exclusively use Yunexpress today, because it literally makes our clients more money and it makes their stores and products last much, much longer. All right, so now you're probably wondering, what does it cost and how do I actually use it? Here I have some comparative costs using the US as an example. Now, mind you, these costs are only the shipping costs. They do not include the product price. They do not include the processing fees or any margins that your seller or supplier takes. So these are just the raw shipping costs. So here I take 3 different weights of products: 100 grams, 300 grams, and 500 grams, and compared ePacket versus Yunexpress regular and Yunexpress express line. So as you guys see, for all of the weights, ePacket and Yunexpress regular, really not a big difference. 20 cents, 15 cents, 30 cents. Not a big difference at all, especially if you consider all of the benefits: faster, more consistent shipping, everything in English, and just a better experience overall. Now, the express line is much faster, much more reliable, and obviously it's going to be a bit more expensive. So for 100 grams, it's going to be $1 or so more expensive. For 300 grams, it's going to be $2 or so more expensive. Now, for the US express line, anything that's over 450 grams is going to be quite a bit more expensive, and that's actually more of a USPS issue and not a Yunexpress issue. So I do suggest that if you are shipping to the US, and you're shipping a heavier product, you might not consider the express line. Or, I mean, if you really want a good experience and you have a heavy product, then you could obviously also use it as well. But other countries, their express lines tend to be a lot better. And so if you really look at these prices, right, they're really not that bad. If you're really serious about building a long-term sustainable business, this is one of the areas that you really should invest in. Spending just a little bit more on the regular speed 7 to 12 day shipping, that's going to boost your business by a huge amount. And by the way, it's not just the speed, it's the consistency, right? It doesn't really matter that if your packages show up fine, 6 months to a year, but when it's Q4 and you're moving a lot of volume, everything gets stuck. And even for the express line, although it's a couple dollars more expensive, it could very much be worth it, especially if you're trying to private label, if you're trying to build a long lasting brand. A couple dollars is nothing, and it's still going to be cheaper than if you risk a lot of money to buy a ton of inventory in bulk, ship it to the US, pay warehousing fees, and then pay USPS shipping prices. All that added together is really not going to be cheaper than using the express line for most products. And fulfilling from China, you're going to be able to fully experience all of the flexibilities of this model, and that you don't have to stock up that much inventory. You can kind of flex and getting in more inventory as you need without worrying about the lead time quite as much. Now, I know a lot of you guys have experienced ePacket, and some of you guys have experienced Yunexpress as well. Please comment below with your experiences. I would love to hear about some of your good experiences, bad experiences, nightmares, and it'd be great if you could share with the community as well some of your own experiences with really either service. And then how do you use Yunexpress? So to get the full benefits, there are a couple of things you need to be really mindful of. Unfortunately, for those that are starting on AliExpress, you do have to use an agent. AliExpress, unfortunately, does not support Yunexpress. That being said, I think it's totally fine to test on AliExpress using ePacket or AliExpress shipping, because when you first start out, it's not as important. But once you start to scale, once you feel more confident about your product, find an agent right away. By the way, a small plug into our service. If you have more than 50 orders per day, or you're willing to put down a 500 minimum order commitment, check us out at ecommops.com. I'll put the link below as well. And we're happy to talk to you and become your premium fulfillment partner. Second, you want to make sure that your agent has a direct relationship with Yunexpress. Yunexpress is very much a B2B company. So that's actually why a lot of smaller agents, they either don't like to use Yunexpress or they don't get the full benefits from Yunexpress because they don't have that relationship with them. You want to make sure that your supplier or agent who uses Yunexpress, you want to make sure they have that relationship with them. You want to make sure that Yunexpress actually has a courier truck that comes pick up every single day and then takes those packages straight into the Yunexpress warehouse. That's where you're going to get the most efficient benefits. On the other hand, if your agent is small, they don't use Yunexpress often, they send it to Yunexpress, that takes a few days, and then it takes a few days to process. You're not going to get the full benefits there. Ideally speaking, you want your agent to be based in Shenzhen, where we are based as well. That is where the headquarters are, and that is where it's fastest. And Shenzhen Yunexpress, they go straight across the border into Hong Kong, and they fly out around the world. By the way, we also do have a Yiwu fulfillment office as well. And actually, Yunexpress is pretty good from Yiwu as well to some limited countries, especially to Western EU countries. So sometimes we have clients who ship out of Yiwu because their factories are there, so it makes a lot more sense to reduce the lead time, and they might ship to European countries, so overall that becomes a lot smoother. However, temporarily, I would suggest that you really want to use Yunexpress out of Shenzhen, and that's because of the current coronavirus situation. there is a lot of restrictions on flights from China, and then although Yunexpress uses freight planes, there are more and more restrictions on freight planes as well. So the most reliable service is going to be the Yunexpress that goes to Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is not restricted in the same way, and it will probably not be restricted in the same way. So there should be no issues with Shenzhen, but be careful using Yunexpress from any other city other than Shenzhen. And finally, look out for the usual supplier tricks. No matter how good Yunexpress is, it's still not going to be good if your supplier is pre-printing shipping labels, they're giving you tracking numbers, and they ship out 5 days later and there's no information in the tracking. So if that happens, that means that your supplier is doing something that is not legitimate. And in terms of supplier tricks, this is a topic that I can talk on and on about, so I'm going to create a new video in the future, so look out for that. If you guys have any other questions about Yunexpress, ePacket, or just logistics or operations in general, please comment below and I'll try to respond as soon as possible. Thank you everyone for watching. Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, turn on notifications if you want to hear more. Join our Facebook group, link below, and join our community where we talk a lot about operations and logistics. And finally, we do offer premium China fulfillment services as well. So if we have more than 50 orders per day, please check out our link on the bottom. Go to www.ecommops.com. We love to talk to you, and really love to partner with you to grow your business into something that is much, much bigger. All right, thank you very much. Until next time, this is Dayu from Ecomm Ops. See you guys later.